All right, everybody, let's check out the 14.10 patch notes.
Hey, everybody. Riot Mort here, and we're starting to hit the halfway point of the set. We're on patch 14.10,
Oh my God.
so it's time for the patch 14.10 rundown.
We're already halfway through. That's crazy.
Generally, things are starting to get to an okay shape. There are a lot of viable comps to play right now. That being said, there's also a lot of comps that aren't really viable, and we're still seeing the game be a little anchored on the back end, 4 and 5 costs being especially strong. So this is the first patch that's really just a lot of micro adjustments. You're not going to see anything like massively shifting the meta.
A lot of tournaments are happening too.
Lots of tiny things to try to put things better. So
right.
You know,
It'd be
hopefully
too
help
crazy.
some of these reroll comps, some of these comps that aren't doing as well, and bring down some of the little like champions that are really dictating the meta too much right now.
Like Syndra.
So let's jump into it and see what's in store.
Actually, it's more about like Syndra, Faded,
all right, first
and Dryad.
off, call this the Blue Velvet Special, but this is something that we've been cooking for a little bit here, real minor.
Oh,
but prismatic orbs are cool. They're neat. They're pretty. You see one, you're like, whoa, that's cool. And then you open it and you get like 2 component anvils and some gold.
Yeah, and someone gets Masterwork upgrade.
So instead, we decided to say, no, when you see a prismatic orb, they are amazing. They're like, whoa, this is crazy. But in order to do that, we can't have them showing up in like every game. They need to be very rare. So they're not going to show up on stage 2 anymore. They're only going to show up on stage 3 or 4. Everyone still gets one like it always has before.
It's such a big deal.
They also only show up about 20% as often.
Okay.
But when they do, they're big.
40
they're
gold.
Like, okay, things have gotten crazy. The 40 gold of value. You can see the table
here.
But basically, every single one of these you should look at and be like, whoa, that's a lot of extra power. That changes my game. This is crazy. These are meant to be sort of a wild mutator to the game, if you will. So you can take a look at the table here. I'm a big fan of 2x Artifact Anvil and a Remover. But again, hopefully they should be more exciting, and prismatic orbs are cool. Okay,
so this is a crazy amount of power spike now because 40 gold is a lot. And if you look at all the different breakdowns, it's like 2 gold augments put into one, or like a prismatic augment plus like a silver. So 2 artifact anvils is like 2 portable forges. Masterwork upgrade plus item anvil is like the iron assets plus the masterwork upgrade, so it's like radiant plus silver. This is radiant plus like, you know, raining gold, or like a rich get richer, like just a bunch of econs. So it's like it's actually pretty good. The 20 gold, you might be like, it's 20 gold, I'd rather have an item. Not really. Like 20 gold is worth more than a component. But the remover is kind of nice as well. Artifact anvil plus support anvil. I mean, this is just straight up portable forge plus support cash. Tome of traits, support anvil. So this is ancient archives plus a support cash. So it's another like 2 golds. 10% odds though. I guess they want to make some of them more popular versus others. 2 4 costs, artifact anvil, and 12 gold and remover. So like a rich get richer 12 gold. Nah, not really like 12 rich get richer, but it's like 12 gold. And then we have 2 4 costs, which is, you know, kind of nice. So it's like 20 gold there. An artifact anvil. I mean, this one can be really, really good if you get a 4 cost. It's really relevant. Like this game the other day I played, I had a heavenly setup, and then literally Kayn and Morgana both drop, which was insane. But this one feels a little bit like could be super hit or miss, because in the end, some people could just get like 2 artifact anvils, and then you got a bunch of gold that you didn't really want to use, and you know, maybe people are up like you know, like full on prismatic over you. It feels like it's all right. 2 duplicators and 24 gold. I mean, this is potentially crazy swing. This is like 3-star 4 cost. Like hit a legendary on stage 4 very quickly. Support anvil plus 25 gold. I mean, 25 gold is a lot. When you start to get to 20, 25 gold, that's like almost like buying you the next level with a bunch of interest type of thing. So yeah, a lot of people might be rolling their eyes like, okay, I guess support anvil, 25 gold. Someone else gets like prismatic items plus like bis and remover. Don't sleep on 25 gold. It is pretty good.
Second one of these things that should have been a long time coming, but we finally did this. In Double Up, player order is now properly randomized. So if you've been playing with somebody and you guys play like 100 games together, and you're like, why does this person always pick first? We fixed it. Finally, all this time.
That's wild.
So properly randomized. Sweet. All right, on the encounter side, this is one that should have been nerfed last patch, but we didn't have the localization changes with the text. Now we did this patch, so Aatrox, when he gives you that choice between experience, HP, and gold, you now get less health. Health isn't meant to be as swingy, so plus 10 instead of plus 15.
Very slight fortune nerf.
This is more cleanup from last patch, so
It's good.
All right, on the trait side, Behemoth. Behemoth is
Starting off
one
with
that,
traits.
especially if you try to go vertical, Behemoth really just doesn't function. It's pretty silly. They pass around this buff that disappears very quickly.
It's also
so
hard
the
to
buff
tell.
is being extended to 8 seconds, and then the 6-piece is being buffed from 80 to 85 armor.
Okay.
So when they die, they should pass off that buff that lasts even longer.
Okay.
That being said, testing PBE this weekend, it did seem like there might be some issues, so we'll look into those.
Wait, what?
But again, the goal here is vertical Behemoth
doesn't
should
work?
actually be a front line that lasts longer than 6 seconds, which right now it really doesn't. Exalted.
Okay.
Exalted is a very fun trait that we like players
Wow.
playing. Makes interesting comps game to game.
Oh wait, this is not per
Still
level.
doesn't quite seem worth it, so we're raising that base damage by 2%.
Okay,
That should help it out even more. That being said, there's still some more work to do on 5 Exalted. So 5 Exalted,
Yeah, 5 Exalted is not
probably
good.
still not the most amazing thing, but if you can fit it in, plus 2% more damage.
I thought this was per level for a second. 2%. I mean, it's nice. It's a little bit buff. Exalted's already very good. In the compositions that can fit Exalted in like this 4-cost meta, like let's say you're playing Ashe and you get like an Ashe Gnarlus set up and you can easily tech an Exalted. You have such a big leg up over other comps that are also hitting. So Exalted already is really good, but I'm glad that they're talking about 5 Exalted because there's almost never a reason to play it. If you guys listen to the podcast with me and Disso for TFT Academy, we call it TFT Study Hall. We had a pop quiz question of like, what is better, 3 or 5 Exalted? And the answer was that it's the same. It's like literally the same average placement and win rate. And that just feels weird because 5 Exalted feels like a big trade-off because you're playing like a lot of quote dead units, and it shouldn't exist that way. So I like that.
Ghostly, now that we did the bug fix and it's back to working the way it's supposed to, Ghostly's in an okay spot. Just to help it out a little bit, the ghosts will spawn a little bit sooner.
Who's playing Ghostly?
Damage. We're not buffing the ghosts or anything like that, but they'll get out there and you can start killing people pretty quick.
You know, maybe Mort's right. Maybe Ghostly is okay, but right now in TFT, okay means weak. I think right now we're kind of at a point where there's so much inflation through portals, augments, encounters, and just general shenanigans like the usual stuff in TFT. And because there's so much extra resource, I forgot we got 2 streaks the previous patch, so we got a little bit more gold than usual. Maybe Mort is right. Ghostly is okay. But I would not use the word okay. I would use that Ghostly is quite weak. But, you know, this is a pretty significant change, right? Because the instances to activate quicker can help accelerate things and keep up the pace. Like, Ghostly's a little bit too slow. So maybe that's partially what ends up helping a lot.
Ink Shadow, this is one of the bigger buffs, but Ink Shadow is good at 3, and it's pretty good at 7.
Agreed.
Not so good at 5. And having to play 5 for that long time where you wait for the Udyr is pretty painful. So 5 Ink Shadow getting a pretty big buff here.
Wow.
They'll now get 15%
That's a
bonus
50%
damage
buff.
and damage reduction. So should be solid. Helps Ink Shadow out.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Doesn't raise their ceiling any, though. Mythic. Vertical Mythic has kind of fallen off a little bit. We want to make sure it's still viable here, so giving Vertical Mythic just the lightest damage buff. Very light here. +1, +2, +3 base AD and AP.
Big buff to Kog'Maw.
Buffs don't get much smaller than this, but should help Vertical Mythics. Things like Cog reroll, Bard reroll, Lilia carry.
True, Bard. Bard can
should
help
them do a little bit more damage.
Lilia carry. Good one. Good one.
Mythic. Porcelain. Porcelain 2, it's fine.
It's all right.
It is what it is. Porcelain 6
Porcelain.
is very strong, as it should be. It takes 2 emblems and a 5 cost. Porcelain 4, probably too good for how easy it is to get online, especially because you can get it online pretty early with with an emblem. So we are nerfing it a bit, lowering the damage reduction 2% and the attack speed 5%. Again, not a major swing here, but 4 Porcelain just won't be quite as free. Maybe you can actually kill that 4 Porcelain Annie now.
Yeah, right.
Small nerf.
I mean, it is. It is.
Reaper. This is another one that Reaper
Nerf
kind of paid for the sins of Kayn and Yone early. Reaper's actually not a very good trait. Don't get me wrong. Kayn's great. Yone was pretty good, but Reaper not so much. So Reaper is getting some base crit and the true damage back to hopefully make Reaper and Reaper emblems actually be good. No one's excited about a Reaper emblem right now. This should help that.
It's true. It's true. Also, one thing to note is that this might make I heard ahead of time that they're buffing a lot of reroll. I wonder if this ends up being a thing where like Kha'Zix benefits from double and they're making it better. It could be one of those things. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying like there's a lot. There might be more implications to this than just a straight up Reaper buff for like Yone and Kindred and all of them. I thought they're buffing the true damage back. I guess.
Sniper, very similar thing here. Sniper, and you might be going, what? They're buffing Ashe? Chill out. There's more coming. But Sniper...
What? They're
no one
buffing
really
Ash?
plays 4 and 6, but we want that to be kind of a thing. So Sniper is getting a buff from 7/15/30 to 8/18/35, making the trait a little more powerful, should make things like the emblem better. So if you want to run Sniper Hui or something like that, Sniper Alun we've seen be pretty good on PBE. So some options there.
My 6 Sniper Nautilus build, where there's a build that you put out with Nautilus, you put a sniper emblem on him, and then you give him AP and you put him in the back. And because Nautilus can hit the back line from your back line, because 6 Sniper gives you +2 range, so Nautilus will start attacking from the back line. He ends up hitting the enemy back line with a bunch of AP. 6 Sniper Nautilus might be back on the menu. It's a complete meme build. I tried it, and I think the only reason why I top 4 is because I was win streaking so hard and I didn't win a single fight with it, but very funny. I think getting Sniper, like a reason to pick Sniper Crest is really important, because right now in the current builds, getting +1 Sniper actually makes things more awkward. If you get a Sniper in the current Ashe Invoker setup, you put it maybe on Lilia and that's about it. And you play 3 Sniper. There's no reason to go for 4. So this is interesting. I don't know if 2 Sniper need to be buffed though. Like if they want to incentivize people to play more vertical Sniper, I don't know if they need to make this 8, but maybe it just makes, Caitlyn and Kog'Maw openers even better. Like they buff Kog'Maw twice now, Sniper and Mythic. Maybe Kog'Maw reroll is really good.
Storyweaver, pretty good at 3. Definitely dominates early and then falls off a cliff. 7 if you can get it all perfect with the Aurelia. 5, kind of laughable.
Yeah, mid-game pieces are pretty bad.
5 Storyweaver Kayle
in
getting
general.
a buff to her damage. Also buffing the Tome of Swiftness a bit, and as well as the Tome of Mending Revive Time. So if you want to go 7 Storyweaver with the Kayle green, you can summon some more units and have a better front line. So cool.
Who has picked I have never picked 7 Kayle with Tome of Mending yet. This is red Kayle, right? So this is like the red. And this is like red, green or something like that. I have yet to try that. That is 1 second. You might be like, okay, like 1 second, but that could be the difference between like swinging the fight completely with a revive versus not. So I'm actually curious to try this out. I think Storyweaver in general is a little bit underwhelming in terms of like where it is outside of early game item holders and tempo. I heard from Riot that they experimented with Storyweaver in different variations at first. At the very beginning, it was kind of like admin-like, where if you guys didn't play set 8, there's a trait called admin, where every time you put in the admin unit, it would give you like a random buff that you would choose to build your trait. Like it'd be like, whenever you cast, get AP, or if a unit died, gain mana, right? It's like a bunch of different things you could do. You also just get like flat AD. And I think Storyweaver was kind of like that to buff Kayle. And they ended up simplifying it a lot because I think they couldn't get it to a spot where they really wanted to. But part of me always kind of like wished, not when I had learned that, part of me always kind of wished that they stuck with that, because I think Storyweaver would have been really interesting if it was like all different kinds of buffs and different traits that you could have activated. Although I'm guessing that there was probably going to be like egregious versions of high rolling. Like the downside of it was that if you just knew the best possible combos, then you would get the broken Storyweaver combos. Back in set 8, what ended up happening was an admin check is what they called it. You would check to see if you got the broken admin. One of them was like whenever an ally died, you would get stats. And so you checked if you got that, and you could play like a crazy mana spamming Soraka back then. So I don't know if that's something that like specifically got in the way, but I do think Storyweaver's kind of flat or just a little bit dull right now.
Trick shot. The difference between 2 and 4 trick shot right now, way too vast. And people have seen their Zayas and Kaisas just melting everyone's backlines. Who needs tanks when you can just melt the backlines? Too much. So lowering the damage of 4 trick shot.
Dude, it's not even just...
Should open up some more 2 trick shot lines. Should make tanks a little bit more viable.
It's not just Kaisa and Zaya, although they are really good, especially Zaya too. She's just the whole team late game. But Teemo, when he gets like Morello Naumacon early, he's just like all of a sudden your 2-star backline just gets killed. Like if you play like Ahri, Kindred, sometimes like Teemo just like kills both of them out of nowhere. It's like, what? Yeah, it's actually pretty crazy. So I think 4 trick shot could get nerfed a lot.
Umbral, we did it. We got Umbral to a playable state. The Alun buff really helped. But one of the things we're going to see across the board is just throughout the game, there's just too much health, whether it be Umbral shields, Yasuo faded shields, Bruiser, 4 costs in general. There's just too much health in the game right now, which is basically making AP costs unplayable. So we are lowering the shield on Umbral here. We're not trying to lower their damage output. We want Umbral to be good, and we're happy it's in a decent spot here.
Interesting.
Somehow. But TLDR, a little less health at 4. and 6. And then finally, Warden, much like Behemoth, just
Oh,
Warden
wow.
verticals not really working out. So giving them a little bit more start of combat DR at every level, and then 4 and 6 Warden will be a little tankier. So again,
Wow,
trying
that's
to let
actually
some
pretty
of these
big.
front lines that are actually vertical front lines be a little bit better, instead of just who has the Annie and the Ornn, so...
Okay, he said he's not buffing Ashe, but he actually really did, because Ashe is only as good as your frontline, and he buffs snipers. So if you play like a 4 Warden Ashe, like, yeah, we're not going to play the Invoker Lilia version, but if you play 4 Wardens now, 4 Wardens is even better, and that's like Set, Nautilus, Amumu, plus a Lowy or something like that. And then you just like play snipers like... I guess unless like the Reaper backline is going to be really good, maybe, but I don't know. Like... This is already looking like maybe Ashe the big winner of the patch. Unless I have to see the Ashe nerfs. We'll see. But this is looking kind of crazy.
Should open up some more options.
Oh, one thing I do want to say is that they buff Wardens and they buff Behemoths. That's actually really big for low cost frontline that isn't 4 cost. Right now, part of the reason why 4 costs are so dominant is because the alternate frontlines are just so much weaker and just not useful. Even if you're playing things like, Arcanist frontline, like Amumu and Alawi, they just don't hold up to Ornn, Nautilus, and Annie. Kind of like the big 3 frontline units. And then they don't even tank sometimes as well as like Lee Sin 2 with items. But if you're able to make it so that the sum of the parts with like vertical Warden, vertical Behemoths being better, that might make them comparable to how much the 4 cost frontline can tank and just give you more options to roll for. And that's partially what makes the game feel so 4 cost lottery oriented, is because you just don't have these reliable alternatives to actually roll for. And that's not just for 4 costs, that's 1, 2s, and 3 costs.
All right, on the champion side, you're going to see a lot of buffs here, especially in the 1 and 2 and 3 cost space. Ahri, pretty much a champion that you play maybe in stage 2.
They're buffing Ahri.
Possibly open up some lines here, some extra damage. So Ahri is
I
going
like
to
a
get
lot.
the spell damage buff here. That spell should hit really, really hard, especially because sometimes it can miss. So want that to do more. Garen gets to be a bit tankier.
Man,
by
I don't know
casting
about that.
a
I don't know
spell
about
more often.
that.
This should also help the...
I don't know about that, guys. Faded opener is already the best opener in the game that you could have, based around like a mixture of frontline and backline damage. Since they nerfed Darius, right? It's about Faded at the moment, and it bridges into the best trait and comp tree in the game right now around Faded Syndra. Oh wow, I thought if anything they would nerf Ahri just like a tiny bit. But I guess like 3-star Ahri is not really worth chasing. Maybe it's like this is them trying to make reroll Ahri more viable. But oh man, okay.
Garen Hero Augment, if you want to play that, should help some.
That's pretty good.
Warden
Garen's
lines.
really useless in
Speaking of
general.
early Warden lines. Jack's
Outside of,
spell is another one that
item holding.
like, woo, we gained 60 armor and MR for a little bit. Bedge. We're going to up that to 90 armor.
Wait, can you guys actually see?
Jack should be a bit tankier.
But Garen goes from 30-80 to 30-70.
Again, trying to open up some more viable frontline options here. Buff
Okay.
to his hero augment, so Kabuko gets 10 more mana as well, can cast a little bit more often.
Okay, so they're buffing Wardens. They're buffing Garen and Jax. This should, and they're even buffing like mid-game stuff like Ink Shadow and Storyweaver. So they're making the early mid-game of these champions and trees a lot more reliable, and that's good because a lot of people are just not holding these units anymore because they're just going for like what is objectively the strongest right now, which is like, in the previous patches it was Darius and Heavenly. The patches before that it was like Storyweavers, and then this patch is like Faded. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Rek'Sai's
Buffing
gonna cast a
Yasuo?
little bit more often and get more spell, armor, and MR.
Oh, we're nerfing is.
So if you ever want to play your
bonus.
Horizon focus Rek'Sai, should be
We're-
better than it was before.
We're buffing Rek'Sai as well.
Yasuo. So this is one that, again, too much flat health in the early game especially. The Faded Shield is going to get nerfed here from 300 to 250. But to compensate, we don't want Yasuo to be useless. We still want him to be tanky. And so his base spell shield will go up. So he can be a little tankier, but he doesn't necessarily just give 5 Faded, 600 free health times 5, which is kind of ludicrous. So
Okay, yeah. That makes sense. Yasuo is like too high value if you get +1 Faded and you get 5 Faded, just you have so much extra HP. Kind of going back to what Moore said, like AP champions are squeezed out due to too much HP. I don't think they need to buff Rek'Sai. Rek'Sai 2 is already very good, and it also bridges you into the Dryad Faded line already at the moment. And it could be like acknowledging that Rek'Sai herself isn't really like worth that much past like the early mid game, but early mid game she's kind of a big bully. So this is pretty surprising.
All right, Aatrox. Aatrox, if you read his tag, says Magic Fighter. He's a carry.
He ain't carrying nothing.
It's not a very good one. So he's getting a lot of buffs here.
Oh, wow.
His attack speed's going up. His mana is
60
going
mana?
down significantly, which is going to let him cast more.
Oh, my God.
Which means casting more at that same damage level, he can actually output some okay damage. To compensate, though, we can't just have him healing nearly as much. He's meant to be a pretty good like Silas item holder.
Yeah, adaptive
use a
helm.
lot of the same items as
really
Silas.
good.
So this should help him. From what we've tested on PvE, he's like better. He's not going to be like S tier or anything like that, but should be a decent item holder in the early game at least. Gnar. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Gnar got off lightly here. Gnar gets a small nerf to his maximum AD.
I'm going to hide this for you guys.
Stack on his spell. I still think he's going to be great. I still think
He's
Dryad's
nerfed
very
to 2%.
It is a nerf. So we'll see.
Okay.
Like I said, my read is Gnar is very strong still, so don't think this like puts Gnar out of the meta. It doesn't.
Well, we're buffing Kindred.
Kindred is a good champion, but benefits a lot from the comps she's in, and is always like the secondary carry. You can't really play her as like, I'm going to play Kindred carry with Reaper or anything like that. So we want her to try to be able to execute that damage on the single target she's hitting, not necessarily get stuck on tanks. So a small buff here.
Okay, so we're buffing Ari, we're buffing Kindred. Isn't Faded already the bet? I mean, I guess we're like nerfing Yasuo's Faded shield, but the early game is still like you can still play around Yasuo. Yeah, you get a little bit less shield. I don't know, man. I don't know about that one. And we are buffing Reapers double, so maybe one of those things where you can play like for Reaper and Kindred becomes much more of a utility in that way. I know that it's not always about like the number of buffs, but it is substantial enough that you just buff a lot of the small things incrementally and ends up becoming enough. So we'll see. Nico buffs though. Hero augments. Drop blossom anybody?
Teemo has fallen off a bit. He just doesn't quite output the damage to deal with all that flat health. Like, what's Teemo going to do against an Umbral comp? Not much. So Teemo gets
buffing
a buff,
Teemo.
Pretty decent sized at 3-star especially. So hopefully Teemo carry can be a thing. Yorick getting that same.
I want to know like the actual value. I forgot. I don't know off the top of my head, but Teemo has gotten nerfed, and then I think they rebuffed him to back to where he was the baseline when he was actually kind of a terror on PvE. And this is it's a lot of damage. Like 1150 is a lot for a dot. And if they're nerfing the HP totals of other things, then yeah, like this ends up being pretty reasonable. They're buffing Yorick. The hero augment Yorick already is kind of crazy, especially in the Umbral, but they are nerfing Vertical Umbral. They're buffing Behemoth. They're buffing Behemoth and they're buffing Yorick. Man, hero augments might be really good next patch. Really, really good.
Same extra tankiness buff that we see, people like Garen and Rek'Sai get. 10 more off the spell. Soraka gets stuck on a champion. Like if she's ulting an Annie, what is she going to do? Just tickle the Annie over and over?
Soraka, I mean, her utility is insane.
Single target part of her spell. This is not the AoE. The AoE does not get stronger. She's not going to be blowing up entire teams. But this should allow her to hopefully start cutting through some of those front lines a little bit more.
Big buff.
You want to play Soraka carry. Finally, Zoe.
Big buff.
Clearly, it feels like the just weakest carry. Anytime you play Zoe carry, it just doesn't really work. We're lowering her primary spell damage a little bit because, frankly, what ends up happening is it's just overkill. You ult somebody for 2,000 damage at 3-star, and then you kind of tickle them with the ricochets that do nothing. Yeah. So the ricochet is going up significantly here.
Wow.
It's almost a 50% buff.
Holy.
Ricochet to compensate. She should
50%
be stronger,
buff?
though from what I've tested on PBE, I'll tell you, she still doesn't seem very good. But this certainly will make her better than she was. So if you happen to fall into a Zoe on 2-1, like maybe she'll kill something now. All right, Annie.
Whoa.
Clearly one of, if not the best tanks in the 4-cost space. Like I said, now that we're hitting the 4-cost, you're going to see more nerfs than buffs here. Annie's going to lose 50 health. She's going to lose some healing on how much she heals from the burn.
Holy cow.
Her debuff also isn't going to last as long. Those are minor. Overall, that's not a huge nerf, 50 health and a little less healing. So it's not like we're trying to gut Annie or anything.
Okay. It looks like a lot.
And then secondly, the last two lines here are mostly just at Annie 3.
Annie 3 is way too good.
Little too good for even a 3-star 4-cost. So she's going to get less health on transform and do a little less damage. She'll still be a 3-star 4-cost. It's, again, not like we're trying to gut her, but she might actually be compared to some of the other 3-star 4-costs now.
More says that it's not like these are all light things, but these are all light things that help compound onto each other. Like the little bit more HP means that Annie and the little bit of like extra healing and debuff will help her cast again, which makes her harder to kill and It just kind of like it just creates this little small window, kind of similar to how Nautilus was, where like Nautilus would like the difference between him having just a little bit more tankiness means that he can cast reliably, and that all of a sudden skyrockets his value. As one of those things, it might be one of those situations where Annie is not that good without items now.
Kane, this guy does a lot of damage, and right now is kind of carrying almost the entire burden of Heavenly and Reaper and Ghostly. Like he's so much power in him. So pulling some power out of him so that we can put it in things like Kindred, and Reaper and things like that. So 100 less health, 5 less armor and MR.
I'm really surprised by that.
You'll notice the damage numbers didn't go down. He's still Kane, so he's still going to kill things.
Okay. I mean, I guess it's like when you play him in the Heavenly setup, he's still too good. I mean, they changed Heavenly specifically for Kane. But these days, Kane's a little bit considered to be on the weaker side. Like, he's kind of mid at high elo. And a lot of people rather play around Lee Sin and Wukong and other units. Like, Kane is good, and you're still playing Kane on your board. But a lot of people have kind of understood that, like, it's not really just a Kane show anymore. So this is actually really surprising that they're nerfing Kane, or at least that they're like nerfing him like this much. Maybe a light tap, like maybe 50 HP could be like significant enough, because Kane could also do nothing a lot of times. If you don't have like Edge of Night on him, he just gets blown up by Syndra or anybody else that just locks onto him. So I'm not. This is pretty surprising for me personally. I personally wouldn't have nerfed Kane if at all. If anything, I would probably have nerfed like Lee Sin just a little bit. If you want to nerf a little bit of that composition.
Lilia, this is a minor change, but as Frodan would say, it's
3 lines of green text.
So be careful. Green sentences can always buff people pretty high.
Yeah.
The targeting pattern is now changed to try to pick a line that will hit more enemies more often. So she's a lot less likely to just throw her stuff at a single target off on the side.
Thank God.
And now more likely to try to bowl and hit multiple targets. This should make her quite a bit better, hopefully.
Yes.
Sweet.
Like the thing, if she hits 1 extra unit, that is such a big DPS increase. Right now, when she hits 1 unit and you're saying you can hit 2, I mean, assuming it's a 1-to-1, it's double the DPS increase. It's not, but man, this is such a big deal. And it can swing fights, because I can't tell you how many times Lilia is just so inconsistent with targeting. She's been kind of a dysfunctional unit since the beginning of the set. And unless straight up Mythic or Invokers are just blatantly OP, even in the Invoker Ashe setup right now, she's not even like that consistent for DPS. Usually just give her like leftover items, and it's a little bit rare to have Lilia be able to like solo carry for a significant amount of time. Like maybe it's parts of stage 4 she can do work, but you just fall off really fast, and her targeting just straight up griefs fights.
Silas, this guy is probably one of the most flexible units in the game right now.
Yep.
You throw him in any comp, he activates 2 Umbral, 2 Bruiser.
Great.
And he's just a beefcake. Synergizes really well with so many of the traits in the game. 100 less health and a little less healing at 1 and 2 star. Again, we're not trying to pull these out of the meta. That's not the goal. But it is to make them less like key, less who got the Annie and the Silas first.
Yeah. Annie 2, Silas 2 was way too good, and they did nerf Umbral as well. So Silas is just more fragile. Probably going to be one of those things where, Silas 2 is probably still good. Just have to make sure you have like the items for him and everything like that. Whoa, red paragraph. Here we go.
Lysandra, this is probably the only big rework, if you will, in the patch. She is getting buffed. She'll be able to cast a little bit more often, but in exchange, the thing she loses here is that if she kills an enemy or doesn't kill an enemy with her spell,
she doesn't throw them anymore.
On live, she picks them up and throws them into the back line and does a big AoE back there, which is like, she really need to nuke backlines by throwing the tank? Probably not. That's gone. So now she's just a single target stun bot killer that can farm items. She cannot AoE backlines anymore. This is a nerf. This is meant to be a big nerf. My read is that actually Lysandra will be one of the weakest 5 costs now, but if you can get her early, she can farm those items and can be good at taking down like a key tank, like a Tom Catch or something like that. She'll have her purpose, but I don't think she's going to be just throw her in every comp and win the game. So Set, we like Set. He's strong, but we want him casting a little bit more often.
Dude, he dies midair so often.
So 20 off his mana.
Dude, he just literally says a prayer and looks up, and then as he's in the middle of flight, he's dropping down, he just dies. I just can't tell how many times it happens to Set. Even if he has like, I have like Lucky Gloves sets with TG or something like that, he still wasn't casting. Sometimes it was crazy because he got mana read and stunned. Ridiculous.
And then Zaya's another part of trick shot. Even with the trick shot
Too
nerf,
good.
Zaya
Too
was still
good.
just a little too good.
Yep.
Especially if you believe our data. But even without that, she can really blow stuff up. So 5 less AD for Zaya. Small nerf to her. Should still be pretty good at capping comps out. All right, on the item side, artifacts. Honestly, the artifacts landed in a pretty good spot. Some could argue that the trench coat, this is after the B patch, of course, where we had to
Trench
nerf,
coat?
the talisman. But if you ignore that, everything other than maybe trench coat landed in a pretty good spot. So now we're just doing some really light buffs, like the smallest buffs, just to get a few of them up to the rest of them.
Okay, I guess he's right. Just trench coat.
Which again,
but
really glad we launched them in a state where they
the
weren't
item's
just,
pretty
like,
egregious.
broken and messing with the game. Blighted Jewel is going to shred 1 more MR per proc, so Blighted Jewel Teemo should be even better now. Corrupted Vampiric Scepter. This one's going to get more attack speed. We're seeing people start to figure out how to use this with things like Gnar and Quicksilver.
Yeah.
So we'll see if this makes it even better.
So they're nerfing Gnar, but buffing
More
this.
flat attack speed early on, really good. Fishbones, more AD and attack speed. Cool. Lichbane's going to proc more starting at stage 3.
Okay, if you guys haven't played Lichbane Kindred right now, you should try it. And they're buffing Kindred, and they're buffing Reaper, and they haven't nerfed Fated. Yeah, okay, maybe Lichbane Kindred is going to be a real big thing. Corrupted Vampiric Scepter there is going to be even better on Gnar. So I'm just talking about like different things that if you open up this item, think about rerolling this. He specifically called out Blighted Jewel and Teemo, and they buffed Teemo. So yeah, these are all like hero items.
So if you want to run that, blue buff Lichbane character, you can. Luden's more AD and AP by 5%. Prowler's Claw, more AD and crit by 5%. RFC, 10% more attack speed. And again, you can see just light base stat changes.
I mean, it's good for the
Not
melee
really changes
carries.
Any of the effects.
Like if like people were playing rapid fire cannon with like a Kiana, for example, and I actually have a video of like playing Prowler's Call on Kiana as well. Like these are different things that you could do with melee carries. I mean, Prowler's Call already was pretty good on Kayn if you played him in the Heavenly Lee Sin and Kayn. But I don't have anything immediately for these items. They just look like generic like melee items at the moment.
There's Arm Guard, 5 more base AP armor and MR. Cool. And then Unending Despair, which is actually a pretty good item. It's pretty tanky. Just upping that shield damage more so you can get some bigger fantasies with those shield explosions. This is one where honestly it might go even higher later, but we wanted to be light and not go crazy with it. We also did a pass on Radiant.
Wait, that's it? They're not nerfing...
Redemption gets 200 more health.
Trench
Should
coat.
make this a better choice and closer to some of the other ones.
Okay.
Crest of Cinders, red buff.
Okay.
3% less bonus damage. Definitely one of the better Radiant items. Should bring it down. Yaksho the Protean, 10 more AP. More Morella
Radiant balancing.
This is currently the best Radiant item in the game. If
that's
you
a big
believe the
nerf.
data by a pretty significant margin.
That's a big
nerf. It's going to lose 15% attack speed. That's a pretty big nerf. So hopefully this brings it down to other Radiant items.
Less Morella Nomicon.
Quick as Silver, 2% more attack speed per stack. Good buff. Royal Crown Guard, another 100 health. Great. Radiant Warmogs, another 3% health. Cool. And then on the support side, Eternal Flame is going to give you 2% more damage amp. Knight's Vow is going to give you 3% more Omnivamp. And Spite, when it procs, is going to give you 20% more. This is a bigger buff. Ally AD and AP. So
they're buff. They're giving you 20% more AD and AP. That's a lot. That's a lot. But like the problem with Spite was how awkward it is to use it, not the number. I mean, the numbers. There obviously is a number where it's going to be really good. If it says give 1 million AD and AP, obviously it's way too good. So what's that number between 30 and 1 million? It's just the way Spite works functionally during the flow of the fight is just so unreliable and hard to activate that I personally don't really like the item.
Hopefully this gets Spite up to some of the other support items as well. All right, Augments. Going to go quick on these. Branching Out. That 1 turn delay was put there as a balance lever that ended up not being needed and made the Augment way less fun.
Yep.
Branching Out's just going to give you your emblem.
Nice.
Enjoy Branching
like that.
Out. Should be way more fun now. Golden Remover can now appear on 4-2. If you want it, take it. Haunted House. This is actually a pretty scary buff. This Augment's not great, but that's because it was only giving +1 ghosts. Now it's going to give +2.
That's a big buff, 50% buff.
If you are ahead with Ghostly, this Augment is going to crank now.
Yeah,
so
that looks...
be careful of this Augment. I think this Augment could end up being very scary if Ghostly comps can get figured out that work around it.
I guess Ghostly Syndra, anybody?
Grab Bag, +2 gold, small buff.
Sure.
Inspiring Epitaph has been around for a long time. It's been kind of an S tier pick for a while. 5% off the shield ratio. Cool. These, same thing. been kind of an S tier pick for a while. This also kind of nerfs some of the 4-cost builds. 10 less HP per buddy.
Sure, that makes sense.
Whole thing here. Long shot. This is the sniper one. It's going to give you plus 3% attack speed. So if you want to go for sniper plus long shot, it's going to be a lot better than it was last patch. Another one that we'll see, this might make this augment really good, can now only cap at 4 interest. So you're only losing a max of 1 interest per turn, but you're gaining that 2 gold per turn. So this could be a pretty good gold augment now. We'll see.
Okay, so just
Midnight
1 less
Siphon,
gold.
The Yorick Hero augment.
That's pretty
Sadly,
good.
We had to nerf this one a little bit.
Oh, I see.
5%
Okay.
less max HP
That's
damage.
good.
So he'll be doing less damage. Still be tanky. Not quite as much free damage doing.
Okay, so they're nerfing Yorick and buffed his
Mulched.
mana.
This is another augment I think honestly could have been nerfed even harder. Mulched is incredibly strong with Dryad, so we'll see.
Such a big snowball augment.
5% more gets nerfed there. Reinforcement, some extra gold. Stars are born, some extra gold.
12
Scapegoat,
gold.
some extra gold.
Wow.
Again, using gold as a lever to try to bring these augments up in power just a little bit.
Yeah.
And then on the prismatic side, Call to Chaos. Right now, if you get 4 emblems, kind of the worst option. We're going to up it to 5.
Yeah.
Does that make it the best option now? No.
Not
in
at
fact, It
all.
might still be the worst option. But now the odds you actually hit something relevant to you will be higher. And it's also really funny to see you get 5 emblems and kind of get dizzy. So Living Forge. This is actually a pretty big buff here. You're going to get those augments 2 rounds earlier. So getting that second artifact will happen pretty early.
Yeah, 16
getting that
rounds.
third one even earlier. So Living Forge might actually be pretty good.
Wow.
Prismatic Ticket.
That's
I think this
huge.
is a big buff. Every time we've seen this be 50, this augment ends up being very strong. And if all the reroll comps start getting better,
Yeah.
Prismatic Ticket could become a very powerful choice here.
Yep.
So
I think it's
that.
just I agree. I think Prismatic Ticket is like not very good right now because the reroll meta is actually quite poor. So they're buffing a bunch of low cost stuff for reroll. This might end up being really impressive. Who knows?
And then finally, Shopping Spree. This might be an over nerf, but Shopping Spree has been sitting at the top of the stats for a long time. And so we had to make a big change here where instead of getting 1 gold per turn, you just get 3 gold up front. That is a big nerf. I actually
Huge
expect
nerf.
this augment to be low to not great. We'll see. If we have to give it more gold up front, we will. But Shopping Spree got hit pretty hard.
Yeah, 'cause instead of getting 1 gold, drip economy for the rest of the game, you get 3
I
gold.
mentioned, these are small changes. These 4 costs, there's too much health in the game here, so the 4 costs are losing a little bit of health here. Ash losing 50, Galio losing 50, Kaisa losing 50, Lee Sin
Wait,
losing
that's all
100,
the nerfs is to
Nautilus
Ash?
losing 50, and Ornn losing 100. Now you might be going, what? You just buffed them all to nerf them all. Well, yeah, it turns out plus 200 was a little much, but plus 150 might be the correct number. It's clearly not go back to what it was.
Or nerf is a big
but
deal.
it was just
Wait,
a
where's the Syndra
small
nerf?
amount too much, so bringing it down.
Hold on a second.
Small amount.
We're nerfing every 4 cost but Syndra, the best 4 costs currently to build around in the metagame.
All right, and then bug fixes.
That's
We reach our
very,
last
very
slide
surprising.
here. After transforming into Shadow Assassin, Kane's tooltip now lists the correct single target damage jam. Cool.
Okay.
The Teemo and Gnar encounters that give bonus augment rerolls can now stack correctly.
I knew it.
Hyper Roll Mythic
I
tooltip
had
now
no
shows
idea.
AD and AP instead of AP and AS. That was an old change that didn't get updated. Hyper Roll Umbral tooltip now correctly shows shield values as flat instead of percents.
Okay.
Or Hyper Roll. Aurelia's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shop encounter now correctly works for 3 instead of the 5. Like it says 3, but
Okay,
it does
text
6.
update.
So we fixed that. Kiana's tooltip now correctly states that the damage she does is the total damage of her attack, not the bonus damage.
Okay.
No functional change, just a tooltip change.
Text.
All units are properly returned to the player pool on death. There were a couple instances.
Whoa, I knew it. I knew it, man. I knew it. How can sometimes I wait for people to die and I roll and I still don't find it? Like, man, in this patch in particular, okay, I knew it, man. I knew it. There's been moments where like I wait for people to die and they're holding like my Orns and Syndra or something like that, and I roll and I'm like, how do I miss? I don't get it. There's no one alive, and like I rolled like 90 goals, something like that, because I sold some other units in the process, and it was over a few rounds plus PVE. Like this, I knew it, man. Oh my god.
Instances where it was possible to get them not back into the pool, so we fixed that.
It's in some instances, but I wish I knew
now
when.
works on Zaya and Rakan.
Okay.
Cool. Ink Shadow items are now properly removed when selling an Ink Shadow unit with a full item bench. Cool. Illume
Okay.
now shreds her primary ability target, not just the line one. Illume now works on Ghost
I didn't know
Armies.
that.
In
Didn't
Hyper
know that
Roll,
either.
Scuttle Puddle and Crab Rave now use the correct icons for PvE rounds. Zaya and Rakan can no longer be used to duplicate altruist emblems.
Whoa. Did not know
Augment tailoring is now correctly based on your board last combat. If Lilia shuffles your first augment to stage 3 or later, it is no longer...
This is actually kind of a big deal. So now that means that re-rolling your augments no longer factors in your current board. So if you want to play for Faded, you take out like everything that's not Faded, and then you roll your augments. That's not a thing anymore. If I'm reading this bug fix correct.
Blacksmith's Gloves no longer sometimes fails to roll 2 items with Lucky Gloves on an AP Bruiser. It was trying to roll Mogul's Mail, apparently. Ornn can now grant items to clones from Suspicious Trenchcoat. Fixed some issues with the Fortune Tree, and fixed units with the Bruiser effect not having their health calculated correctly when spawned by Suspicious Trenchcoat.
I see. So we're buffing Suspicious Trenchcoat. Oh god. Oh man. Some issues with the Fortune Tree. There's a lot of issues with the Fortune Tree, but I guess they probably didn't want to list it all out. But man.
But there you go. Like I said, it's a decent amount of changes because we have a lot of content. But my expectation is the meta isn't going to be that different. Bringing the top down, bringing the bottom up.
I mean, if you're not going to nerf Syndra, then yeah.
Options, hopefully some more viable things. We'll see. And this is kind of the approach we're going to be taking for the next few patches. Is just trying to squeeze everything in so that it's as balanced as possible as we enter the second half of the set, to make sure all the competitions are as good as possible.
Yep, it's for tournaments.
And things like that. So, there you go. That's a patch rundown. Yeah, we'll be back in 2 weeks with another patch rundown. There'll be more things. Can't spoil anything yet, but more things cooking. That's what we do. We cook in the background. And before you know it, there'll be a championship and another set.
And another set 12.
All right. That's going to do it for me. Hope you guys enjoy. Until next time, take it easy.